There's no one I have to worry about. Look at that. Beautiful mince, some ham, some chicken. When this cooks together and I slice through it, you'll see all these chunks in there. This will be delicious. Now what I have to do is clean all this up, and I'm going to pack this in a tureen. To me, that's the best part. Trevor from Tullamarine sent an email and said, Richo, where does the name terrine come from? Well, Trevor, this is where it comes from. This dish here is called a terrine dish, and that's how terrines get their name. Because what we do is we put everything in here. Once we put it in there, it's a terrine. Now, to start with, what I've got is my thin-cut bacon. I'm going to line the terrine mould because I want the outside of it to have a bit of garnish around the outside to make it look good. And it's also another great way of incorporating another meat, sliced bacon. What could be better than this? Everyone's got sliced bacon laying around. So all you do is you put a little bit of bacon on the bottom and run it up the outside. But you'll also see something else. See this cling film or handy wrap or whatever you want to call it? What I did is put a little bit of oil inside the terrine mould and layered some cling film. Now you're probably thinking, Richo, it's going to melt. Well, it's not. I'm not going to let this terrine get to a high enough temperature for the gladwrap to melt. And when I take the terrine out, when it's cooked, you'll understand why I've done it. You don't have to overlap them because there's a lot of bacon here. Well, a lot of bacon to some people. And we leave it overlapping over the side there because we're going to put it over the top there in a couple of minutes. Now, what I've got is my mixture here. Just make sure it's nicely packed together. You don't want any air bubbles in here. And what I do is I pop some meat in the bottom of it and I push it down and make sure it's firmly packed. Because if there are any air bubbles in there, when you cut into it, there'll be a big hole and there's nothing worse than that. You want plenty of meat in here. You don't want any holes of air in it. You can see all this chicken and all this ham and the parsley and all the ingredients here are going to give it a great look and a great flavour. Now, some people would stop at this level, but I like a good rounded top, so I'm going to build this up a little bit more and then I'll put the bacon over the top of it. Look at that. That's perfect. Now, what you need to do is just with your fingers, push it together and make like a little roof or a dome over the top of it. And all I need to do is put the bacon over the top of it like that and just alternately fold the bacon over the top of it. I could spend hours doing this, but I want to get this into the oven so I can bake it. Perfect. I'm going to put some bay leaves on top so it looks really nice. The bay leaves will also help to flavour it from the top when it cooks. But when I've taken this out, you'll see these lovely cooked bay leaves and some thyme over the top there. It sort of makes it look nice and pretty. This is where you can let the artistic part come out of you. Now the next thing I do is pop my lid on top because I want to keep some pressure on it. I don't want it to go golden on top, but I want to keep a little bit of pressure on it so it cooks. There's a little hole here and the holes around the side here will let any steam that comes out. Push that down a little bit so it's nice and firm. Now, I want to cook this nice and slowly. I don't want it to get too hot. So what I've got here is a baking tray, an oven-proof tray. What I do now is what we call a bain-marie. So basically I want to put water in here about a third of the way to half of the way up. That'll make sure this cooks beautifully, nice and slowly in my oven that's at 150 degrees Celsius. Now this is going to take about an hour to an hour and a half to cook, but I'm going to know exactly when it's cooked when I put my digital thermometer into the centre of this terrine. When it gets to 72 degrees Celsius, I know it will be perfectly cooked. Now I'm going to pop this in the oven. Now my terrine's been cooling down for about an hour or so. So what I'm going to do is take the lid off, and this is the good bit. Pop a heavy weight on top of it. You can use a chopping board. That's perfect, nice and flat. What I want to do is put some pressure on the terrine. So as it cools down in the fridge for a couple of hours or overnight, the pressure on it squeezes out all those air bubbles and makes the terrine nice and firm and packed. So when I slice into it, I get a beautiful slice out of it. Now, the onion pickle. I've got a beautiful red onion here. What I'm going to do is slice it nice and thin and show you how to make the quickest, easiest, bestest onion pickle in the whole world. Nice and thinly sliced. If you don't have a slicing machine, it's okay. You can use one of those mandolins, but watch out for your fingers, or of course a nice sharp knife. Grab some vinegar, about half a tablespoon, and some salt, like you're seasoning it, about a good tablespoon or so of salt. And you might think that's a lot. Now all you need to do is just mix it around gently, make sure the salt and the vinegar's got into your onions, After 15 minutes, those onions would have softened, and maybe your tears have stopped as well, and they'll be ready for the next stage. Pickles are ready. You can see they're nice and soft. It took no time at all. 15 minutes is all you need, but if you let them sit in the fridge overnight, even better. All I do now is just lift out the onions, pop them into my bowl here like this, a little bit of the liquid on top of it, and then all I need to do is put a little bit of extra virgin olive over the top of it. Look how shiny that is. And a little bit of parsley, some continental parsley. You can use some thyme, some oregano, whatever you want. Parsley is what I've got in front of me, and I love using plenty of parsley. Just a little rough chop of that, straight on top. Quickest and easiest pickled onions you'll ever make. And here's another great reason for using a chopping board, because you can turn your terrine out straight onto the board. Remember the cling film before? This is why I put it in here, because all you need to do is just gently pull on it, and see that? It comes up beautifully. Out it comes, and all you do is peel it down. You can see around the edges it's melted a little bit, but it hasn't affected the terrine at all. Just peel it off like that. Look at the bacon all around it. That looks fantastic. You can imagine showing up to a picnic with one of these things. You'd be the talk of town. Now all you need to do is just cut through that like there. Look at that. Beautiful terrine. The pork meat, little bits of fat in there, chicken, the ham, the bacon around it, little pieces of herb in there. This is a perfect simple dish. I'm just going to get another slice off there like this, because this is what I'm going to eat. I've got my plate here. I've got my terrine. A little drizzle of olive oil to make it nice and shiny. Look at that. A little sprinkle of salt, because you can't have enough salt on something like this. Then I've got my beautiful pickles on the side here like that. Something nice and sharp to cut through all that fat that's in there. Not that there's a lot in there, but a little bit of sharpness really picks up a dish like this. A little bit of Dijon mustard, and of course, some crusty bread. Tear it off like that. I reckon there could be nothing better than this. Lovely terrine like that. Onto my piece of bread. Peel off the bay leaf. That is so good. That is a fantastic, simple dish. The Frenchmen have really got it right this time. Well done.